If it was not snowing there, then it was not a problem. But can you tell if it is snowing or not snowing over there? That they are unsure about. The pressure builds up. You know that as we go up, the pressure increases, right? Now, when the pressure builds up, his ears start hurting. Silk Road connects what and what? It connects China to all the other countries, right? Now, China's most successful product is, of course, plastic. Hello and welcome to your English Prep School classes. I am your English teacher, Kshama. Today in this class, we are going to take the path of Silk Road. Yes, you heard me right. Today we are going to take up this lesson named as Silk Road from your textbook Hornbill, and we are going to find out what is there in the Silk Road, what are we going to see throughout when we travel around on the Silk Road, okay? So let's dive in and find out. In this session, I'm going to talk to you about the author, the background of the lesson, what is the Silk Road, we do want to know, right? Then there is the summary and recap of this lesson. What are the important events in this lesson? What is happening? Who is there in the Silk Road, right? We need to get all of this right. So without wasting any time, let's find out who is there. Now, before we start, I have a couple of questions to you as always. How much of an impact does a person or an event from the past have on the future of people? So if there is something that has happened in the past, long time ago, does it affect or influence the further on life of the person in any matter? Then, how wonderful will the feeling of completing something be even after going through so many obstacles? Imagine there were no obstacles on your way to something, your destination, and you finished something. Will that have any meaningfulness to you? Will that experience be cherished and looked back with a lot of, happiness and pride by you? No, right? Only when there are obstacles, only when there are problems and you cross the hurdles to reach somewhere, that journey becomes so meaningful to you, right? So what is life without some hurdles and obstacles then? After that, is traveling a holistic experience? Do you agree when I say it is a complete, it's not just a physical experience of moving somewhere, it's also an experience of meeting someone, you go through a lot of change of perspectives, you will have a lot of spiritual experience as well. Traveling is on the holistic experience. When I say that, do you agree? What is your point of view about it? Now, it is surreal how the journey sometimes becomes much more important than the destination itself, right? Moving forward, who is the author of this lesson? The author of this lesson is Nick Middleton. He is a British physical geographer. He has traveled to more than 70 countries, 70. Yes, you heard me right. Then, in Going to Extremes, that's the name of the show in the Channel 4. It's a television program. He has experienced life in the hostile conditions. He has been in places and experienced life in the most, the good to most worst extreme conditions as well. How many countries? 70 countries. Yes. Then he has won the Royal Geographical Society's Ness Award in 2002. After that, he has authored and co-authored multiple articles and books. And what was the topic of his thesis? It was Geography of Dust Storms. The name of the author is Nick Middleton. He is a British physical geographer who has traveled to more than 70 countries, and in the Channel 4 television program named as Going to Extremes, he has experienced the extreme hostile conditions of life. Then he has won the Royal Geographical Society's Ness Award in the year 2002. He has authored and co-authored multiple articles and books. The topic of his thesis was Geography of Dust Storms. That's what we know about Nick Middleton, and let's see how and what he has written inside this Silk Road. Now, what is a Silk Road anyway, ma'am? You might ask me, what is the Silk Road, ma'am? We want to know. A Silk Road is nothing but a trade map or the trade route between China and the Far East and Middle Eastern countries, including Europe. This trade route that connects China to the Far East and Middle East countries, including Europe, till Europe, it could be India, Somalia, all these countries, is called as Silk Road. When did it start? It started from the Han Dynasty in 130 BC. In 130 BC, Han Dynasty of China decided to have a trade route with all these West countries. It became open to having a trade route with the West countries, and that's where the Silk Road began. It's basically a trade route. Then, It was opened for the traders of West, as we talked about, but it was open until 1453 AD. What happened after that? The Ottomans, the Turks, Ottoman Turks, they decided to shut down this trade route between China and all the Far East, Middle East countries along with Europe. They decided to shut it down. When? In the year 1453 AD. Okay, after that, what happened? The trade with China through Silk Route was boycotted. Clear? It's been how many years? It's been 6,000 years that it has been shut down. Now, when there was a trade route for such a long period of time, from 130 BC till 1453 AD, don't you think it would have had such an enormous impact on the Asian market, those who were trading with China, right? But now that the Silk Road is closed, it has completely changed the scenario. What could have been, we don't know. It has changed drastically. If there was Silk Road even today and they traveled and this trade market was still existed, history and the way society operated in all these areas would have been very much different, because trade and market makes a lot of difference in a lot of our lives, because whatever we buy, we use it in our day-to-day lives, right? Be it clothes, be it the food that is available to us, all these resources we use it, and that determines the way we live, our cultural practices, our day-to-day habits, everything. So it would have been so different if Silk Road was still open and still was in the working condition. But over here, this is what Silk Road is. It is basically a trade route from China to all the other countries such as the Far East, Middle East countries and Europe, which was started by the Han Dynasty to be open to the trade market with the West in 130 BC. Then it was shut down by Ottoman Empire in the year 1453 AD. Moving forward, now what is there in this lesson then? Keeping this backdrop in your head, let's move forward. In this particular lesson, our author over here, Nick Middleton, is taking up Kora, K-O-R-A. What is Kora? Kora, in the Indian sense, if you have to put it, it is nothing but taking up a yatra, right? Kora is a pilgrimage that you take. Kora is actually a Tibetan word for, going around something, moving around. In the religious context, if you say, we go around, we have this practice of going around in the temple, in the Hindu practices, right? So over here, Kora is nothing but, the author over here, Nick Middleton, has decided to take up the Kora of what? Of Mount Kailash. He has decided to climb it up and go around it. That is the Kora that he is taking up. In which mountain? In Mount Kailash. Who is accompanying him? He is accompanied by Nick Daniel. And there are people who are accompanying him. He is leaving the place called Ravu. He is accompanied by Daniel and Satan. These are the two people who are accompanying Nick Middleton. Now, before they leave, this Lamo feels that they need to be a little more warmer for this condition. It was snowing. So they are handed over a couple of sheepskin coats, which Daniel and Nick wear. When Nick wears it, he looks almost similar to the Drokbas. Who are the Drokbas? These are the native shepherds or the nomads who live over there. These nomads, they go around with their flock of sheep or herd of other animals like llamas or yaks for that matter. So they go around with these animals. They are the nomads. When he wore the sheepskin coat, he looked similar like them. Then what happened? They had to cut the Changtang route. It was a very long route for them to reach Mount Kailash, but there was a shortcut. What was the shortcut? This shortcut was very risky. What was the risk over there? They could encounter snow blockages. And if it was not snowing there, then it was not a problem. But can you tell if it is snowing or not snowing over there? That they are unsure about. However, Satan decides to take them through this risky shortcut. That is the setting of our scene, where Daniel and Satan are accompanying Nick Middleton, where he is going to take the pilgrimage, which is the Kora in Mount Kailash, where they, before leaving Ravu, they are given long sheepskin coats to wear, which they are wearing, and they look like Drokbas, who are the nomads or the shepherds of this particular place. Now, when they are leaving, how is the scenario over there? Now that they've started to go, there are plains that they see. There's vast open plains, there's pastures and gazelles, which are like little antelopes. These are like, they look similar to deers, okay? All of these are to be seen. And when they move even further, imagine you are sitting in the car and imagine yourself going over there. Some places, the open plains were a little stony and then it turned towards being grass. Grass was seen. Later on, they also saw kyang, which is the wild asses. They also saw that. It came into picture. Then drokbas, he was looking like drokbas earlier. Now they were getting to see actual drokbas. There were men and women, with herds of sheep, flocks of sheep going around with long sheep coats, as you can see in the picture, right? Then there were snow-capped mountains that also came into the view. After that, there was a river which was clogged with ice, which was filled with ice. Now imagine it could be, whether it could be snowing or not snowing throughout the way to Mount Kailash, we don't know. What are the challenges that they are going to face? We have no idea, right? Then the turns became sharper, the climbing continued. They are in the vehicle and the turns are becoming sharper at the ends. Then at this point, what happens is that in the authors, in Nick Middleton's ears, the pressure builds up. You know that as we go up, the pressure increases, right? When the pressure builds up, his ears start hurting. So he tries to close his nose and tries to snort and clear his nose, at least if that would help. Then it cleared. As his nose cleared, it became a little relaxing to him. Then there it was. What was there? We don't know. So the first little sign of obstacle has arrived. The turns are becoming very sharp and the climb is, it is becoming even more, it is going on ascending. The climb is going in the ascending way. And we see that as the pressure is building up, Nick's ears are hurting and he also snorted to clear out his nose. There it was. What was there? It was this. You see the dog over there. It looks very cute, but there is nothing cute about it, okay? So in the isolated nomadic tents, there were, you could find one nomadic tent here and there. It is pretty isolated, one in one place. That's how it was. There one could find Tibetan Mastiff. Yes, the huge dog's picture that you see over there is nothing but a Tibetan Mastiff. Now, what do we know about Tibetan Mastiffs? Whenever this car moved towards their tents, this Tibetan Mastiff, it was ready as though like a bullet out of a gun to shoot, right? To be shot right at them. Now, what do we know about this term? Tibetan Mastiff, it's a huge, shaggy black monster, right? With, it would have red collars would have been put on them. Then it had massive jaws, like jaws that would be ready to rip open anyone for that matter. Then it's in the China's imperial courts, it was used as a hunting dog. No wonder Nick Middleton thought to himself, this huge, gigantic, shaggy monster, black monster with red collar, looking so scary, like as though a bullet out of the gun. It was considered as a hunting dog. It was used as a hunting dog in China's imperial courts. And from China to Tibet, that he is in this place, Tibet, that was in ancient times, it was a tribute to Tibet. It was sent from China through the Silk Road, the first gift from Silk Road that we are talking about. From China to Tibet, it came as a tribute. That's Tibetan Mastiff for you. As they go on moving, what happens is that there is a first snow blockage that they experience, and there's also, we have to talk about the altitude sickness that he experienced. Altitude is the height above the sea level, right? So as the height increases, the pressure also increases, and here our author is to be seen experiencing the altitude sickness. What happens? Let's see. So the first snow blockage comes in front of the car, and what do they do about it? Now, if they slip off the snow, the car could literally turn over. But what did they do about it? When Nick Middleton looked at his watch, they were 5,210 meters above sea level. That's the altitude over here. Then they tried stamping the dirt and thought that, okay, now maybe we can just move through it. When they stamped the snow, the vehicle was able to move smoothly over it. After that, 10 minutes later, there was another blockage that they experienced, and the altitude at that point of time was 5,400 meters. Now, this snow blockage was a little huge compared to the previous one. So what did they try to do is they tried to drive around it, which was also successful. But later on, there was a steep slope, there were major rocks around. Somehow they crossed through it. There were two major snow blockages that they experienced, and the altitudes are 5,210 meters, 5,400 and 400 meters respectively. After that, when they finally reached the peak over there, it was 5,515 meters. Now, when they reached the peak of one of the mountains, there were piles of rocks, white silk scarves, and there was ragged prayer flags. Whoever has reached that top of the mountain, they have put all the flags, prayer flags over there. Then when they descended over from there, this headache of his, he had gotten throbbing headache when they reached the maximum altitude, which is 5,515 meters. His head started feeling like it was about to explode. But when they descended from the slope, from the mountain, it decreased. Now that's what has happened over here. We have experienced two snow blockages. First one, we stamped over it. Nick Middleton, not us. Nick Middleton, Daniel and Satan together, they stamped over it. Somehow were able to pass over the snow blockage. And in the second one, they drove around it and reached the top of the mountain, then descended. Now over here, we saw the second sign of Nick Middleton experiencing altitude sickness. Moving forward, as they descended, where did they come? They came near a work camp. When they were descending, they saw that there was a work camp happening, and over there they ate hot noodles. Then after that, they also saw plateaus, salt lakes, brackish lakes, everything over there. The place around that work camp was filled with plateaus, salt flats and brackish rivers. Then after that, Daniel said Tata. He decided from there he had to head to another place. So he had to bid farewell. He went away. After that, there were only two people left, which is Satan and our author, Nick Middleton. What did they do? They came to a town named as Hor. Now, the first impression Nick Middleton has about Hor is that it is lifeless, it is dull, it is miserable. There are no greeneries to be found in this particular place. The name of the place is Hor. How is it? It's miserable, small, and there is no greenery found at all. Then, there is also shore of Manasarovar. Now, Manasarovar is a river that is of high importance in the Hindu scriptures and also in Tibet. It's worshipped in Tibet, and even in Hindu and Buddhist cosmology, it is believed to be of utmost sanctity and utmost importance. It is also the birthplace or the source of four other rivers: Indus, Ganges, Sutlej and Brahmaputra. But whatever that he saw, along with it, he also saw the Mount Kailash. It was very nearby. All that he had to do was start with his Kora, the pilgrimage that he wanted to take on top of Mount Kailash. It was close by and it was very tempting. But when he was talking about the view of Manasarovar, he also thought that his experience is nothing compared to, is very contrast or nothing compared to what the others had mentioned. He had read about one of the Japanese monk in 1900 named Ikai Kawaguchi, who had come to see the Manasarovar, and he had almost teared up. He had almost started crying by experiencing the sanctity of the lake. He was very moved by the purity and the pure bliss the lake was offering. Then there was also a Swedish guy named Sven Hayden. Both of them, although not very emotional, but at the very sight of Manasarovar, they had become very emotional. They couldn't control their emotions and they started tearing up. But Nick Middleton says, my experience was very contrast to what they had talked about, is what he felt. Then after this happens, there's something that goes wrong. What goes wrong? Now, as they are in Hor, there is a troubled night. They decided, both Satan and Nick Middleton decides to stay in a hotel where he stays, and he has a troubled night. We had seen that earlier, his nose was getting blocked and he had snorted and cleared it out. Then as they reached the altitude of 5,515 meters, he had a throbbing headache. Then as they came down, it had subsided. But over here, something is wrong, and that something is that when he tried sleeping at night, his nose was completely blocked and he could not breathe. Okay, that's a terrible feeling. The nostrils were blocked with cold, but the altitude was not that great of height. It was just 4,760 meters. Not that great, right? But he had a heavy chest and he was gasping for oxygen. As he went to sleep, he couldn't breathe and he felt like he was gasping for oxygen. So he woke up, he stood and started walking around. So he tried also sitting. But when he sat, it all cleared. Then he again tried to sleep, but the very thought of him, not being able to breathe and choke and gasping for oxygen, it is like an electric impulse. It didn't let him sleep. So what did he do? He decided, okay, I will not be able to sleep for the rest of the night. Let me just be awake. That's what happens. Breathing through single nostril also he tried, which did not work out. So he sat up, felt relieved for a couple of times. Then the next day he decided to go to the DARCHEN's medical college, which was in that town. There was one medical college that they could go to. Satan took him there. Then medicines were given, 5-day course of Tibetan medicines were given. Some of them by eating only he was able to, decide what content is it made of from. Some also looked like, waste out of sheep, but he had not to think about it much and he just swallowed it. Then he slept soundly like a log that day and not like a dead man. He was feeling like he was almost about to die when he was not able to gasp, when he was not able to breathe and he was gasping for oxygen, right? But over here, after taking the 5-course medicine from the DARCHEN medical college the following day, he felt better and he was able to sleep peacefully. After that, what happens? Satan also decided to leave. He also had other work, so he also bid farewell to him. He said, it wouldn't have been much of an issue if you had died. It's not about you dying, but somebody dying on the whole is bad for business. Somebody came here to Tibet for taking up this Kora and they died. That's bad for business. That's a bad name, right? But if you had died, I don't think I would have been emotional that Nick Middleton died. He makes a statement as such. For them, business matters more than human lives is what Nick tries to tell us over here. That doesn't mean Satan is a bad guy. Then he could see the vision of Himalayas and Garla Mandahata, which is also one of the highest peaks. He could see the vision of it from his hotel, from the places he was visiting too. Then the general stores, what did the general stores over there he had? He is listing a couple of things that he had seen over there. In the general stores, there was Chinese cigarettes, there was soaps, prayer flags, and all the basics could be found in these general stores. When it came to the men could be found in the game of pools. They were playing games and the women were washing their long hairs in the flowing rivers. The men were found in the game of pools and women were washing their hairs with ice water. They had long hair and they were washing these hair. Then he thought to himself, wait, why are there not many number of pilgrims or people who are, wanting to take pilgrims are to be found over here? Have I come early? Is that what I have done? He thought to himself. Then there is no progress that has happened in my self-improvement and positive thinking as well. Over here, when he had come with the idea that I will work on my positive thinking, my self-development, everything. But with the sleeping difficulty that he experienced and realizing that this Kora is seasonal, meaning that it doesn't happen all the time. People take up this Kora seasonally because we don't know whether it is snowing very badly in Mount Kailash, right? So the Kora, the pilgrimage is seasonal. Now, in between figuring out the fact that Kora is seasonal and the sleeping sickness, altitude sickness that he suffered from everything, there is not much scope for his positive thinking and self-development. There was not much space for that, right? Moving forward, what happens? He also talks about how in the only cafe that was found in Hor, the ceiling was made out of plastic. And that thought reminds him of the fact that China's most successful export, we know that Silk Road connects what and what? It connects China to all the other countries, right? Now, China's most successful product is, of course, plastic. Now, over here, this plastic came to all the other countries via what? Via Silk Road. And in the Asian countries and European countries, you see that all the handbags and the bags that we carry to the market, which we shouldn't be, is made out of plastic. Most of it is made out of plastic. And that comes from where? It comes from China. That's what Nick Middleton thinks about. The only cafe in Hor, when he looks at the ceiling of it, it is made out of multicolored plastic sheet. That reminds him or takes him over here. The shopping bags in Asia and Europe, most of them are made from plastic, which comes from China. Then what reminds him of that? The multicolored ceiling sheet, which is there in the cafe. Then he hits up a conversation. He's holding a book. And when somebody sees the sight of him holding the book, they try to hit up a conversation with him. And that leads to him finding out that that guy who he meets has also come to do the Kora. This guy, I'm about to reveal it to you. This guy writes papers on the importance of Quora and how people do it, but he has never tried it by himself. This time he has come to try it by himself. Now he's not trained in it, okay? Initially, Nick Middleton was happy about the fact that, okay, there is company. I was wondering, the Quora is seasonal now. There is nobody to take up the pilgrimage with me. What do I do? But he has found company. Accidentally, he has found company. The thing is that they are both ill-equipped. They don't know how to do, since this guy has also not done it. Nick Middleton has also not taken up the Quora. Although to be together is relieving, but they are both ill-equipped. They are not prepared to take this up. They don't know how to do it. Then he is Tibetan, but he is not a practicing Buddhist who does this on a regular basis. On one way, Nick Middleton had thought that I would take up this Quora or this religious pilgrimage with devout believers who are true believers. I'll go and talk to them and I'll have that experience. But this man over here that we have found is not a devout believer. He is a Tibetan, but he is the one that writes papers and wants to figure out how this experience is, what is it about. He's as similar as Nick Middleton. They're both ill-equipped. Now he's getting a company as such, which Nick Middleton had never thought about. He is none other than NORBU. The new guy over here is NORBU, and he is an ideal mate. Why is he an ideal mate? Is it because he is almost similar to that? Both of them are geeks and nerds and not literally the ones, devout believers who are taking the pilgrimage? No, it is also because this guy over here with the big tummy decided that all our bags will be carried by yaks and we will not carry it. It is great to have such a companion, is it not? I mean, making animals go through such things is bad, but this guy over here decides that I am not going to carry it for sure. Then Nick Middleton, for an instance, thinks that he is a guy from West because he is wearing a wind cheater and he is wearing metal-rimmed spectacles. Then he reveals that he is a Tibetan. He's not from the West. He actually works in the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, Institute of Ethnic Literature, Beijing. He works over there with a big tummy of his, okay? So NORBU is the new guy with whom Nick Middleton decides to take up this Quora, the pilgrimage that he has decided to take. Now, first up, one ought to leave a place to reach to another. We see that Nick Middleton, along with two important characters, Daniel and Satan, are leaving Rawu to go where? To go to Mount Kailash to go do the Quora. Who is doing the Quora? Nick Middleton alone is doing the Quora. So they wear the sheepskin, they are ready, looking like drogbas, and they head. In order to cut Changtang, they take up the risky road where they are, blocked by two major snow blockages. They are somehow managed to cross. But before that, they also encounter drogbas, these gazelles, and Tibetan mastiff. There are isolated drogba tents that they see. And after that, when they have passed through the altitude sickness that Daniel goes through, blockages in the ear, head pain and everything, they come down to Hor where he sees MANASAROVAR as well. And he finds the stark contrast between how other people experience. Not mandatory that you also have to feel the same whenever you go to a place as somebody else has felt. It's not mandatory. You might feel some completely contrasting to what they have felt. Similarly, he feels different to what other people had felt when they had seen MANASAROVAR. They had felt very emotional. He, on the contrast, he doesn't feel very emotional about it. He sees the image of Mount Kailash, which is very tempting, and he wants to go there, but he doesn't have company because he finds out that Quora is seasonal. It happens in a particular season and not all the time. Then at night, there's something wrong that happens. He's not able to sleep. His nose is blocked. He tries to breathe from one of his nostrils, which also fails. For the entire night, he's not able to sleep. Then the next day, he decides to go to DARCHEN's only medical college. Daniel has parted. He has gone when they descended from the mountain. And Satan also bids farewell after he helps him go to this medical college and get the medicine. Then the next day he feels better. When he feels better, he is able to appreciate that Darchen is not really a bad place after all, right? He sees all the general store, what are the men doing, what are the women doing. He appreciates that. Then he finds accidentally NORBU. NORBU is the same guy, geek, nerd, somebody who's into studying and writing papers and everything, but somebody who has also come to experience how it will be to do the Quora firsthand. Then they both decided to pair up and take up this Quora or the pilgrimage together. That's what we studied in this entire lesson of ours. That is how our journey to Silk Road, through the Silk Road was. Although it was short, it had so many things to offer to us. It had the good face and the bad face of traveling. It had, wearing all those jackets and looking like the Drogpas, encountering all those animals, beautiful physical features like plateaus, valleys, river clogged with ice, everything we had. Then on the worst part of it, we also saw the altitude sickness, and people have to go on their own way and you are left alone, and how the chance encounter or the chance factor of meeting someone is also there. The surprise factor was also there in store for us. I'm sure this lesson had so many takeaways and so many meaningful experiences to you as well. Enjoy the lesson, go read it, don't miss out on any detail. Come up to me with any doubts that you have, or what did you think about the explanation of the imagery and the experiences. Were they valid? What happened? You tell me about it. On that note, I'll see you all in the next class. Thank you.